Hi guys, welcome back. I just wanted to give you a fair warning that my bird is next to me and she might squeak a little. So if you hear it, that's what that is. I'm sorry in advance. Okay, so today I'm going to tell you why I decided to self-publish. It's an interesting story. It's kind of a sad story, but I figured since I'm talking about self-publishing and what I've learned along the way, this will also be helpful because it'll explain why I decided to go on this route. So I had written previously two books, and I was before the one I self-published, and I was querying them out, and it was a learning experience. Let me tell you, I think because one of them was my very first book that I ever finished, and that book I learned a lot from. I think the way most of us writers learn a lot from our first novels. And so when I decided to write the book that I self-published, I kept all the things I learned in mind. I kept the market in mind. And so I wrote with all that in mind. And so I was fairly confident with it. And then I started to query it out after editing it and editing it with beta readers, editing it with an editor. And I had a couple of partial requests, but eventually they all resulted in rejections. And then I had a small press publishing house that was somewhat, well, they responded very positively. They really, really liked it. And they basically said, we love your voice, we love your characters. There's a lot of things we really like about this book. The way it begins, it's kind of problematic. There's a little info dump happening. There's a few other things that they recommended I change about the beginning. And it was very positive, constructive criticism and completely doable. And I responded saying, hey, if I change these things, would you mind taking a second look? And they said, of course, send it back. Don't worry about it. We'd love to. So I was very encouraged, and I did all the changes that they recommended, and they actually made the book much better. They were really true. I really saw their point. And so when I finished the new version, I sent it back to them, and they took a while to get back to me. And finally, when they did, it was a lot less positive, even though they did say they liked the changes that I made. But then they went on and created this giant list of things that they would require me to change before they would actually consider the book. And they were not small changes. They were really substantial changes. For example, they wanted me to change the love interest. And they wanted me to, so the book, for those of you who don't know, I'll show it to you. This is my first book, Karina Witt and the Gateway to Junetha. It's a book inspired by my own archaeological experience, because I thought I was going to be an archaeologist at one point, and I went to Israel to dig in Galilee and in a dig called Tel Hazor. And so it was an interesting experience, the digging experience, and it taught me a lot. It was fun, it was crazy, it was insane, and I'll probably do an episode on why I think all those things. But it definitely proved to me that I should not become an archaeologist. And so when I came back, I had learned a lot, and a lot of the people that I met were so amazing, and they were so ingrained in my head that eventually, basically, it created this book. And a lot of the characters were inspired by certain people, and some were completely made up, of course. But it's the dig that I actually wanted to happen, in terms of not the crazy fantasy part adventure, but just in finding some fun artifacts. I really wanted to find something, and I didn't find anything on the dig. So this was my imagination let loose of what could have been. And so it's a little bit Indiana Jonesy, in that this girl's on an archaeological dig, and she finds this fantastical artifact, and then it sends her on this journey. And basically, this publishing house told me that they wanted me to completely get rid of the entire fantasy element, which is, I mean, this is an entire book. This is a new book, what they wanted me to write. And on top of that, they wanted me to get rid of the fantasy element and wanted me to make it an immigrant story, because the main character, is a Russian American, because I'm Russian living in America. And so I pulled from my own experience. And they loved that aspect, the cultural aspect of it. So they wanted me to bring it more to the forefront. And they wanted the entire book to be about this Russian American, which is really funny to me because the book is set in Israel. How would it be an immigrant story if it's set in Israel? Basically, it needed to be an entirely different book with just the same characters and the same voice. That's what they wanted. And I think I kind of lost my mind for a little bit for the rest of the day. And I had to reevaluate. I was really confident in this book, and I definitely wasn't going to do the changes that they asked me to. But I wondered, I sat down and I evaluated, is this really the path that I'd want to go on? You know, querying for months and months and months, and maybe somebody will give you the hope, and then of course dash all your hopes again with crazy requirements. And maybe through this experience you might chance upon an agent who then will have to send out your manuscript to editors, and maybe they'll chance upon an editor. And I think I was just tired of the back and forth. And I was tired, and I was confident enough in this book. So I decided I'm going to chance it, and I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to self-publish it and just see where it goes. That was my path. That doesn't mean that that's necessarily the right path or the wrong path. It was just my experience. And I, by no means, try to persuade people to do one thing or the other thing. I think everyone is an individual, and everyone will decide based on what their life is like, and if they can do it, if they can't do it. There's a lot that comes into play when you self-publish a book. And for more of that, about the self-publishing industry, about the pros and cons of it, you can find my other episode that I did, the 5 pros and cons to the publishing industry. Now, I did want to do a little caveat for full disclosure that I am searching for an agent right now. I'm trying to pursue the traditional route now with a completely different novel. I do want to tell people that my experience was just my experience, and not every publishing house or agency is going to try to make so much changes to your novel. And by no means are they evil people. I think they're just trying to make a living. They're trying to sell what they think is going to sell. So I don't blame anyone. I don't hold any hard feelings against anyone, and I don't think anyone should. I think it's just the way this industry is, and it's not like this just for me, and it's not like this, and then sometimes it's completely different, where some people will find an agent that's absolutely in love with your book as it is, and will find an editor who's absolutely in love with your book as it is. So I don't want to poo-poo the traditional publishing industry at all. It's just very individual, and you can decide based on wherever your life leads. All right. That's it for today, you guys. And if you have any questions, as usual, leave your comments under the video. Or if you're listening to the podcast, send some comments my way through my website, through the contact page. Alrighty, you guys. Take care. See you next time.